Have you ever pretended to be asleep and accidentally overheard a shocking secret? Maybe it was a nervous love confession, a heated family argument, or something so unsettling you wished you had never heard it. Today, we're diving into some of the wildest pretending to sleep stories shared on Reddit. Some will make you laugh until you cry, some will send chills down your spine, and others might just break your heart. Have you ever been in a situation like this? If so, share your story in the comments. I guarantee there are plenty of people who can relate. And if you enjoy stories like these, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to Reddit True Vault, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Now, let's jump into our first story. One of the most awkward situations you could ever experience while pretending to be asleep. Let's begin with a situation so uncomfortable, you'll be glad it didn't happen to you. Stories 1. Caught in the most awkward moment while pretending to sleep. I never thought pretending to sleep would land me in the most awkward situation of my life. But trust me, if you ever find yourself in a similar moment, just keep your eyes shut and pray for it to be over. It all started when I was in college, sharing a dorm with my roommate, Raphael. We were both pretty laid back, and despite our differences, we got along well enough. Raphael was the kind of guy who thrived on chaos, loud, unpredictable, and constantly bringing new people over. Meanwhile, I was the type to mind my own business, preferring my headphones and a good book over parties. One Friday night, I came back from an exhausting study session, hoping to crash early. Raphael, however, had other plans. He was out with some girl, and I figured I'd have the room to myself. I turned off the lights, wrapped myself in my blanket, and drifted into the kind of light sleep where you're half aware of your surroundings. That's when the door creaked open. At first, I thought maybe Raphael had just come back to grab something, but then I heard two sets of footsteps, a hushed giggle, a low whisper. My stomach sank. Oh no. No, no, no. I stayed perfectly still, my breathing steady, my face turned toward the wall. Maybe if I didn't move, they'd assume I was asleep and keep things quiet. Oh, how wrong I was. The bed across from me squeaked, a lot. The kind of squeak that left zero doubts about what was happening. My brain short-circuited. What was I supposed to do? Announce my presence? Fake a sudden coughing fit? Roll over dramatically? No, that would be worse. So, I did the only thing I could think of. I froze. The sounds only got worse. The kind of noises that made me question all my life choices leading up to this moment. The girl gasped. Wait, is your roommate awake? I held my breath. Raphael laughed. Nah, he sleeps through anything. Lies. I was more awake than I had ever been in my life. I lay there, frozen, my mind running at 1,000,000 miles per hour. Do I cough? Do I roll over? Do I just accept my fate as background noise in my own dorm room? Meanwhile, the bed kept creaking. Loudly, obnoxiously, like it was auditioning for a haunted house sound effect. Then, the girl gasped. Wait, is your roommate awake? Oh no. Oh no. 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 I squeezed my eyes shut even tighter, willing myself into a statue. If I could make my heartbeat stop sounding like a freaking drum solo, that would be great. Raphael let out a chuckle. Nah, man. He sleeps through anything. Lies. Absolute lies. Mark commented. If that were me, I'd start fake snoring immediately. I held my breath, waiting for her response. There was a pause. Then, oh God, no. I heard footsteps. She was coming closer. Are you sure? She whispered. Raphael laughed. Babe, I promise. The guy could sleep through an earthquake. Lisa commented. You ever stay so still that you start questioning if you're actually alive? I started internally screaming. This is my villain origin story. I tried everything to block out the sounds, the cringiest ASMR session of my life. I mentally recited the entire first season of SpongeBob. I did math equations in my head. Nothing worked. And then, the worst moment of my life happened. Silence. Then, a voice right next to me. Chris commented, oh man, I would have just stopped breathing at that point. Good morning, she chirped. She was talking to me. I cracked one eye open. She was sitting on the edge of my bed. My bed. Smiling. Like she didn't just emotionally scar me for life. I blinked. Morning? Raphael was grinning like an idiot from across the room. See? Told you he sleeps through anything. I forced out a laugh. Yeah, I can sleep through anything. And the moment the words left my mouth, I knew. I had messed up. Her eyes widened. Her smile vanished. Raphael? Cackling. David commented, "At this point, just pack your bags and leave the country." Next thing I knew, she was hitting him with a pillow, screaming, "You said he was asleep." I took this as my cue to exit. I grabbed my phone, my keys, and my dignity, what little was left of it. And that, my friends, is how I witnessed the worst night of my life, all while pretending to be asleep. Story 2. The strange conversation in the operating room. They say you can't hear anything when you're under anesthesia. They say you just drift into unconsciousness, with no memory of what happens around you. They were wrong. I was lying there, unable to move, my mind hovering between sleep and wakefulness. I felt myself sinking into darkness, but then I heard voices. "What do you think would happen if I pressed her belly button right now?" My heart stopped. A brief silence followed. Then another voice, more urgent this time. "Dude, don't. Remember what happened last time?" "Last time?" Alex commented. If I heard this while under anesthesia, I'd just astral project out of my body. I tried to move my fingers, twitch a muscle, anything to let them know that I could hear every word they were saying. But nothing happened. I was trapped in my own body, forced to listen. A third voice, probably the lead surgeon, cut in. "Focus. We don't need any more problems." More problems? What the hell does that mean? John commented, "I swear surgeons play truth or dare in the OR." Eventually, I lost consciousness completely. When I woke up, everything seemed normal, but I could never forget what I heard. And to this day, I still wonder, what happened the last time? Story 3. The family discusses my marriage while I pretend to sleep. If there's one rule about pretending to be asleep, it's this. You will always hear things you were never meant to hear. I was 15 years old, lying on the couch after dinner, pretending to sleep so I could avoid doing the dishes. Simple plan, foolproof. Then I heard my mom sigh. "We really need to start thinking seriously about her marriage." Wait, what? Emma commented, plot twist. This isn't a family conversation, it's a business transaction. My dad hummed in agreement. There's a nice family interested. Their son is hardworking, has a stable job. My aunt chimed in. He's only 5 years older than her. It's not a big deal. 5 years? I was 15. Jake commented, "So, they're just giving you away like a wedding gift?" I started panicking. Should I jump up? Should I scream? But I wasn't ready to face this conversation. My mom continued, "She doesn't have a boyfriend anyway. We need to secure her a good future." I wanted to yell, "What future? I haven't even finished high school." Lisa commented, "If my family started arranging my marriage while thinking I was asleep, I'd wake up reciting the Declaration of Independence." I stayed still, listening. Finally, my dad sighed. "Let's wait until she's a little older." No rush. For the first time, I felt grateful for my dad. But I also knew, given the chance, they'd bring this up again. And next time, I might have to pretend to be asleep all over again. What do you think about these stories? Have you ever pretended to be asleep and overheard something shocking? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Reddit True Vault for more crazy stories like this. Story 4. Discovering my mom's affair through a late-night text. There are moments in life that change the way you see someone forever. Moments that shatter the illusion of who you thought they were. For me, that moment came one night in a dimly lit hotel room. It was supposed to be a family trip, just my mom and me. Nothing fancy, just a weekend getaway. We had spent the day sightseeing, and by the time we got back to the hotel, I was exhausted. Or at least, that's what I made her think. I wasn't actually asleep. I was lying on my side, my back to her, scrolling through my phone under the covers. That's when I heard it. Ding, a text notification. No big deal, right? People get texts all the time. But then I heard my mom giggle. Giggle. My mom. I froze. David commented, "Yeah, no. Parents laughing past 10 p.m. is already suspicious." She wasn't just laughing. She was whispering, responding quickly. The bed creaked as she adjusted herself, lying back comfortably. Curious, I cracked one eye open, just enough to see her phone screen. And that's when I saw it. A picture. A man. Not my dad. Jessica commented, "Oh, I'd be fake snoring so loud to make my presence known." My stomach twisted into knots. She kept typing, her fingers moving fast. I couldn't see the full conversation, but I saw enough. Flirty messages. A few heart emojis. A name I didn't recognize. My throat went dry. Should I say something? Should I let her know I saw? I squeezed my eyes shut, my mind racing. If I confronted her, what would happen? Would she lie? Would she make excuses? For the first time in my life, I didn't want to know the answer, so I stayed silent. Ethan commented, "This is the kind of info you wish you could unsee, but it's burned into your brain forever." The next morning, she was cheerful, acted like nothing had happened, like she wasn't sneaking around behind my dad's back, laughing at texts that should never have been sent. I wanted to scream. Instead, I played along, pretended I hadn't seen a thing. But from that night on, something between us changed. She didn't know it yet, but I would never look at her the same way again. Have you ever discovered something shocking about a family member by accident? Let us know in the comments. Story 5. My father's breaking point. There are moments you wish you could take back, words you wish you never said, but life doesn't give you a rewind button. I was 11 when it happened. My brother and I had been absolute brats that day, arguing, breaking things, ignoring every rule our dad set. When he finally lost his patience and grounded us, we did what most kids do. We screamed at him, told him we hated him, that we wished he would go away forever. That night, I was lying in bed, pretending to be asleep when I heard my dad come in. His steps were heavy, slower than usual. I could smell the alcohol before he even spoke. My dad had never been much of a drinker. That's how I knew something was wrong. Then, he did something I'll never forget. He sat down in the darkness, and I heard the first sob. Deep, guttural, like a man who had reached the end of his rope. He stumbled outside, and I could hear him talking to my mom. All I ever wanted was to be a better dad than mine. He kept saying it, over and over, his voice breaking between sobs. Then he begged my mom to let him die. I curled up in bed, feeling my stomach twist in knots. I had never heard my dad cry before. I had never seen him this broken. I wanted to get up, to tell him I didn't mean it, that I loved him, but I stayed frozen, my body trembling, ashamed of my own words. To this day, I think about that night. Every few weeks, I send my dad a message telling him I love him, because I never want him to feel that way again. Comment from Lucas K. Man, this hit deep. Parents are human too. We don't realize how much words can hurt them until it's too late. Story 6. Getting roasted in my sleep. Pretending to sleep is fun until you hear something you wish you hadn't. I had just put my kid to bed and decided to take a quick nap before making his birthday cake. My in-laws were in the living room, talking in hushed tones. "She's such a lazy mother," one of them scoffed. "Poor kid. She sleeps all day instead of baking him a cake. I bet she won't even bother." I felt my stomach drop. It was barely 10 a.m. The entire day was ahead of me. But according to them, I was already a failure. I stayed in bed, silent, blinking back tears. 2 hours later, they finally left for groceries and probably some wine. I got up, wiped my face, and started baking that damn cake. When my kid saw it, his eyes lit up, and in that moment, nothing else mattered. I didn't tell my husband what they said until a week later. I didn't want to ruin my child's birthday, but I never forgot. Comment from Riley B. People who judge parents without knowing the full story are the worst. Bet she made the best cake ever. Story 7. The night I almost became a victim. Some childhood memories fade. Others haunt you forever. I was 12, spending the summer with my aunt and cousins. That night, I lay in the loft where I was supposed to sleep. I wasn't asleep yet, just lying there, relaxed, half listening as my cousin and his friend came into the room. Then, I heard it. "Is she asleep?" A pause. My cousin hesitated. "Yeah." My breath caught in my throat. Something about his tone made my skin crawl. His friend whispered, "Can I touch her?" Time stopped. I felt sick. My whole body went rigid, but I didn't move. I didn't breathe. A long silence. Then, my cousin's voice, uneasy. I don't know, man." Footsteps. Closer. I could feel someone standing over me. My heart pounded so hard I thought they could hear it. I had to do something. Silence. Then, a nervous chuckle. A step back. She moved. "Let's just go." The door creaked open. They left. I waited 10 whole minutes before I bolted up, shaking. That was the moment I learned that monsters don't always hide under the bed. Sometimes, they stand right beside it. Story 8. I almost got attacked in my sleep. 4 years ago, I was crashing at a friend's parents' apartment in NYC after a night out. It was late, and I had fallen asleep on the enormous window seat in the living room. At some point, I woke up to someone entering the apartment. It was my friend's older brother. I barely knew him, so I decided to stay still and pretend to be asleep to avoid small talk. Then, I heard him on the phone. "Oh, I forgot. My sister's friend is here." Pause. "Yeah, she's cute. I think she's asleep." My stomach twisted. I could just go over there and get on top of her. For sure. I stopped breathing. He took a step closer. "Yeah, it's been a long time." Another step. Then, he sighed. "No, I probably shouldn't. My sister's here." I stayed awake for hours after that, my body shaking. As soon as the sun rose, I grabbed my bag and left. Later, I told my friend what her brother had said. Her response? "Oh, he's just lonely." That was the last time I ever stayed at her place. Comment from Nate W. "Holy shit. The fact that he even considered it is terrifying. And your friend brushing it off? Nope. Not okay. Some things you hear while pretending to be asleep will haunt you forever. Whether it's a loved one's breaking point, people talking behind your back, or something far worse, these moments stay with you. So tell me, have you ever overheard something while pretending to be asleep? Drop your story in the comments. I'll be reading. Story 9. My father's best friend and the day everything changed. There are some moments in life that etch themselves into your memory forever. This was one of them. My father had always been a simple man, someone who found joy in small things, like his morning coffee or fixing up old furniture in the garage. But if there was one thing more important to him than anything else, it was his best friend, Greg. They had been inseparable since childhood, from riding bikes down dusty roads as kids to sharing beers on the porch as adults. Even when Greg hit a rough patch and became an alcoholic, my father never gave up on him. He checked in on him, sent messages, even when Greg refused to respond. Eventually, Greg got better, and they were closer than ever, talking on the phone every day, making up for lost time. Then, one morning, I woke up to the sound of my dad's phone ringing. I wasn't fully awake yet, so I stayed in bed, listening. I heard my dad pick up the phone. There was silence. Then, in a voice I had never heard before, low, shaky, and hollow, he said, "Oh God, I think he's dead." My stomach dropped. I stayed in bed, frozen, as I heard my dad quietly set his phone down and walk outside. A few minutes later, I peeked out the window and saw him sitting on the porch, staring at nothing. His coffee, untouched, sat next to him, growing cold. I had never seen my father cry before, and that morning, he didn't. But the silence around him was louder than any sob could have been. I wanted to go out there, to say something, anything, but I didn't know how. So I just sat on my bed, feeling useless. I still think about that morning a lot. About how grief isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the quietest moments that hit the hardest. Comment from Jakim, "This one got me. Seeing a parent lose someone they love is one of the hardest things ever." Story 10. The midnight tortilla tradition. Growing up, my dad worked late nights. Sometimes, he wouldn't get home until after midnight. As a kid, I hated it because it meant I rarely saw him during the week. But there was one tradition we had, one that I didn't even realize was special until years later. One night, I fell asleep on the couch while waiting for him. I woke up when I heard the front door open, but I didn't move. I wanted to see if he would carry me to bed like he used to when I was younger. Instead, I heard my mom in the kitchen, making fresh tortillas. The smell filled the house, warm and familiar. I closed my eyes, listening. "Did he eat yet?" my dad asked. "He was waiting for you," my mom replied. "But don't wake him up. It's late." There was silence. Then, I felt a gentle nudge on my shoulder. "Hey, buddy, wake up." I opened my eyes to see my dad holding a warm tortilla, freshly torn. He smiled, handing me a piece. "Come eat with me." So I did. We sat at the table, eating in comfortable silence. I was half asleep, but I still remember the taste, the soft, warm tortilla, the butter melting into it. It was simple, but it felt like love. Years later, my father passed away. And now, every time I smell fresh tortillas, I remember that night, that tiny moment in time, that quiet act of love. Story 11. The farting phantom of the blanket. Listen, if you're a parent, you know that one of the greatest joys in life is messing with your kids. And my dad? My dad was a master at it. When I was little, I had this habit of asking my dad to check on me before he went to bed. It made me feel safe, knowing he was always there. One night, I was still awake when I heard him coming up the stairs. I panicked. I wasn't supposed to be awake. If he saw me, he'd tell me to go to sleep, and then I'd feel guilty. So I did what any kid would do. I pretended to be asleep. Big mistake, because my dad, being the menace that he was, lifted my blanket, farted under it, and tucked me in like a damn burrito. I lay there, frozen in horror, as my father casually walked away like nothing had happened. The betrayal. The sheer audacity. I didn't dare move for a full minute, hoping the toxicity would dissipate. It did not. The next morning, I confronted him. Dad, did you fart under my blanket last night? He looked me dead in the eyes and said, I would never do such a thing. To this day, he denies it. But I know the truth. Story 12. The Great Fart Scapegoat, a crime of betrayal. Let's get one thing straight. I was framed. It was a summer road trip. The kind where everyone is packed into the car for hours. The AC is struggling against the heat, and snacks are the only thing keeping you from losing your mind. We had just left a gas station, and my parents were arguing over directions. My dad insisted he didn't need GPS because, and I quote, I have a perfectly good sense of direction. My mom, meanwhile, was tapping furiously on her phone, saying, then why did we just pass the same gas station twice? I was in the back seat, minding my own business when it happened. The fart, it was sudden, silent, and deadly. At first, there was confusion. My sister, sitting beside me, stiffened. I saw her nostrils flare slightly, and then, boom, Mom, EW. He farted. The betrayal was immediate and absolute. My mom turned in her seat with a look of pure disappointment. My dad reached for the window controls. Oh, come on. I protested. It wasn't me. Yeah, right? My sister shot back, her face twisted in fake disgust. You always do this. My parents laughed. The windows went down. The damage was done. But here's the thing. I knew the truth. I knew it was her. She knew it was her. But did she admit it? Of course not. She just sat there, smirking, basking in the chaos she had created. And I was left with the fart felony record. For the rest of the trip, every time someone brought it up, my sister doubled down on her lie. Remember when you almost killed us all in the car? She'd joke. And my parents? They believed her. To this day, she still swears it was me. She's a liar. But one day, the truth will come out. And I will have my revenge. Story 13. The Drunken Vegas Confession, a Sleepless Nightmare. 7 hours? That's not a breakup. That's an unpaid internship in emotional labor. Susan, top commenter, said, top of form, bottom of form, not just workplace drama. That was a full Shakespearean tragedy at 3 a.m. Sarah also left a comment. Survived a work trip? More like survived an emotional hostage situation. Jake also commented, have you ever been trapped in a situation where pretending to be asleep was the only way to survive? Well, that's exactly what happened to me during a work trip to Vegas. It had been a long day, meetings, fake smiles, and forced corporate bonding over drinks. By 2 a.m., I was done. I slipped away from the chaos, crawled into my hotel bed, and passed out. My roommate, Jake, wasn't back yet, but I figured he'd roll in later. No big deal, except, at some point in the night, I woke up to the sound of the door opening. Jake had returned, and he wasn't alone. Our assistant manager, Mark, walked in with him. And from the tension in the air, I could tell this was not a friendly, casual visit. I barely cracked an eye open before my instincts screamed at me, stay asleep. You do not want to be a part of this. Jake sat by the window, pulled out a bottle of whiskey, and let out a deep, exhausted sigh. Mark threw his jacket onto a chair and ran a hand through his hair. So, this is where we're at, huh? Mark said. I knew, right then and there, that I was about to witness something I had no business hearing. The next 7 hours were an emotional roller coaster. Mark and Jake were in the middle of some kind of relationship fallout. What started as a tense discussion spiraled into a full-blown dramatic breakup argument. There were accusations, tears, long-winded explanations, and a detailed timeline of who caught feelings first, who stopped trying, and whether this was a real thing or just a mistake. Jake sat in silence for most of it, while Mark delivered monologues that could have won an Oscar. Every time I thought they had finally worn themselves out, Mark would start again. By 4 a.m., he was pacing around the room, mumbling about how he gave up everything for this. By 5 a.m., he was crying. By 6 a.m., he hit the epiphany stage, the part of a breakup where someone realizes they'll never love like this again. I just laid there, motionless, praying for the sweet release of unconsciousness. Finally, at 6:45 a.m., the room fell silent. I let out the smallest sigh of relief. It was over. I had survived. Then, Mark muttered one last thing. You know, sometimes I think we should have just run away together. Bro, I almost blew my cover right then and there. Eventually, Mark left. Jake let out one last sigh, took another sip of whiskey, and collapsed onto his bed. The next morning, they acted like nothing happened, like I hadn't just witnessed a full-blown, 7-hour-long emotional catastrophe, like my entire worldview hadn't been reshaped overnight, like I wasn't sitting on the most explosive piece of office gossip ever. But I kept my mouth shut, because honestly, I deserved financial compensation for what I endured that night. Final thoughts from readers. One person commented, "You witnessed an entire office drama arc and didn't even get a raise. Tragic." Another person added, "Man, I need to know if Mark ever brought this up again at work." And someone else summed it up perfectly, not just workplace drama. This was a full-blown Shakespearean tragedy at 3 a.m. Story 14. The night I overheard my roommate's darkest secret. I don't think I've ever been more terrified in my life. That night, I was staying over at my best friend Rachel's dorm room. We were supposed to have a movie night, but she had to step out for a bit to deal with some school-related paperwork. She told me she'd be back in an hour, so I decided to just lie down and wait for her. I wasn't really asleep, just kind of zoning out under the covers. The dorm room was dimly lit, and I could hear the faint noise of people chatting in the hallway. It was one of those nights where you don't expect anything unusual to happen. Then the door opened. I assumed it was Rachel coming back, but when I peeked through the blanket just a little, I saw Jake, her boyfriend, walking in instead. He wasn't alone. With him was another guy I had never seen before. He was taller than Jake, dressed in a hoodie and jeans, and something about him immediately made me uneasy. Maybe it was the way he walked into the room, shutting the door behind him and locking it as if he owned the place. "Dude, you sure she's asleep?" the guy whispered. Jake scoffed. "Yeah, she sleeps like a rock. Trust me." I felt my stomach drop. Something was off. At first, I thought maybe they were just going to grab something from Rachel's side of the room. But then, they both sat down at the edge of my bed. My heartbeat skyrocketed. Jake let out a low chuckle. "I mean, look at her. She wouldn't even know." His friend laughed. "Yeah, man. If you weren't taken, I'd say go for it. She wouldn't even wake up." I felt sick. My mind started racing. Were they just messing around? Was this some twisted joke? Or were they actually considering something worse? I wanted to move, to get up and run, but my body was frozen in fear. Every instinct screamed at me to stay still. If they knew I was awake, would that make things worse? The air in the room felt heavy. Then, Jake's friend leaned in closer. "Man, I bet she's soft," he muttered. "You ever thought about it?" Jake laughed nervously. "Nah, bro, chill." His friend nudged him. "Come on, just a little fun. She won't even know." At that moment, I knew I had to do something. But what? My phone was on the nightstand, just inches away. But if I reached for it, they'd see. Rachel wasn't here. No one else knew I was in danger. I had to think fast. And then, an idea. I stirred a little under the blanket, let out a long, exaggerated sigh, and turned onto my side, facing away from them. Then I mumbled something incoherent, like someone talking in their sleep. The room went silent. For a few agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then I heard the sound of footsteps backing away. "Dude, let's just go," Jake muttered. His friend scoffed. "Lame. Whatever." A moment later, I heard the door unlock and open. Then they were gone. I didn't move. Not for a long time. I just lay there, heart pounding, staring at the wall, trying not to break down. When Rachel finally came back, I burst into tears. She was furious. She called Jake immediately, screaming at him over the phone. He tried to brush it off, said they were just messing around, that I was overreacting. Rachel dumped him on the spot. I reported the incident to campus security, but since they hadn't actually done anything, all they got was a warning. That was the scariest part. how close I had been to something horrible happening. Yet there were no real consequences. Jake transferred schools after that semester. I never saw him again, but I still think about that night. About how easily things could have gone so much worse. And to this day, I sleep with my door locked. Top comments from viewers. One of the highest rated comments came from Laura, who was absolutely furious. What the hell? Jake and his disgusting friend should have been expelled immediately. The fact that they got off with just a warning makes my blood boil. This is why so many victims stay silent, because people don't take it seriously until it's too late. Another user, Mark, added, the way OP handled this was incredibly smart. Staying still, pretending to sleep, and making those small movements probably saved her from something horrible. But damn, the fact that she had to think like that just to protect herself? That's seriously messed up. Story 15. Overheard my own students talking bad about me behind my back. Emily commented, I swear, if I ever heard someone talking bad about me behind my back, I'd sit right up and call them out immediately. But would you really? I thought I would too. But when it happened to me, I pretended to be asleep. And what I heard that night changed me forever. I work as a summer camp counselor. It's a great job, full of sunshine, bonfires, and energetic kids who make every day unpredictable. But one night, something happened that completely shifted my perspective. I was lying in the staff dorm, exhausted after a long day. The door was slightly ajar, letting in the faint murmurs of campers still awake outside. I wasn't paying attention until I heard my name. Two of my campers were talking just outside my room. Do you think he's cute? Maybe, but I heard he talks bad about people behind their backs. Kinda ruins it. My stomach dropped. They were talking about me. Wait, really? He seems nice. I don't know. I just heard it from someone. Whatever. He's not hot anymore. I felt a strange mix of emotions, confusion, frustration, and an unexpected sting of betrayal. I had never spoken badly about my campers. I actually liked this group and did my best to make camp fun for them. Yet, a random rumor was all it took for them to change their perception of me. I felt ridiculous for letting it bother me, but it did. And then, something unexpected happened. A third voice chimed in. That's not true. I've heard him say you're really smart and funny. Someone must have made that up. A small wave of relief washed over me. At least someone had my back, even when I wasn't there to defend myself. I never sat up to confront them. I didn't need to. That moment taught me something important. You can't control what people say about you, but you can control how you react to it. I chose to let it go. Top comments from viewers. Sophia commented, this reminds me of when I overheard my coworkers talking trash about me. It's a terrible feeling, but knowing someone defended you, that makes all the difference. Michael added, honestly, if I were OP, I would have walked out and confronted them right there. But thinking about it, OP's way was probably the best. No drama, no arguments, just quiet confidence. Story 16. The ex-girlfriend's awkward demand. I didn't know whether to laugh or be genuinely disturbed. The conversation unfolding right next to me was so bizarre, so uncomfortable, that I found myself frozen in place, pretending to be asleep. It was freshman year of college, and I was stuck in the most awkward situation imaginable. My roommate, Ryan, had a long-distance girlfriend, Bella. She was intense. The kind of person who constantly accused him of cheating, despite the fact that he barely left our dorm except for class. I had my suspicions about her, though. If someone is that paranoid about cheating, it usually means they have something to hide. One weekend, Bella decided to visit, and I had a bad feeling from the start. I had planned to be out for most of the night, but a sudden headache sent me back to the dorm early. By the time I got back, Ryan and Bella had already returned from their date and were in bed together. I figured I'd just slip into my bed, roll over, and let them have their privacy. Then I heard it. Come on, just try it. Bella's voice was hushed but insistent. I could hear Ryan sigh heavily. Bella, I told you, I don't want to. You wanted to with me before, she shot back. But now that John's done it, suddenly you're too good for it? I squeezed my eyes shut. Oh no, this is not a conversation I should be hearing. Ryan groaned. Why do you keep bringing up John? That was forever ago. Bella huffed. Because it's unfair. If you got to do that with me, then I should be able to do it with you. It's only fair. I internally cringed. Oh my God. Oh my God. Why am I listening to this? Ryan, clearly exasperated, responded, "That's not how this works, Bella." But Bella wasn't giving up. Her voice took on a sickly sweet, pleading tone. "Please? Just once." At that point, I wanted to evaporate into thin air. I had heard enough. But what was I supposed to do? Sit up and announce my presence? Pretend to suddenly have a coughing fit? No, that would make this situation even worse. So, I did the only thing I could. I remained perfectly still, my breathing steady, praying that this nightmare would end. And then, it's not even hard. Why isn't it hard? I could hear Ryan let out a frustrated groan. "Bella, just go to sleep." I felt secondhand embarrassment so strong that I almost passed out from it. After a few tense moments, she finally stopped pressing the issue. The bed shifted. Silence. I let out a slow, quiet breath, relieved that the horror was over. Or so I thought. The next day, Ryan acted completely normal, like nothing had happened. Bella, on the other hand, barely acknowledged me. Maybe she realized that I had been awake the entire time. Maybe she was just too embarrassed. But let me tell you this. I have never, in my entire life, wanted to be anywhere else more than I did that night. Top comments, Samantha. I would have straight up started fake snoring just to make them shut up. No way I'm sitting through that in silence. Nathan. The "it's only fair" argument? Yeah, that's a red flag the size of Texas. Olivia. I can't believe Opie had to lie there through the worst pillow talk in human history. Stay strong, King. Marcus. Bro, Ryan should have dumped her on the spot. No recovery from that level of crazy. And that's just one of many times pretending to be asleep led to a situation I'll never forget. But trust me, my story isn't the only one. Reddit is filled with wild experiences just like this, some hilarious, some terrifying, and some that'll make you question humanity. And that wraps up today's collection of the wildest, most shocking pretending to sleep stories from Reddit. From awkward encounters to heartbreaking moments, these stories prove that sometimes what you overhear when you least expect it can change everything. Now, I have to ask, have you ever pretended to be asleep and heard something you wish you hadn't? Maybe it was something hilarious, unsettling, or even life-changing. Share your experience in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to Reddit True Vault, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on more unbelievable Reddit stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.